Have you ever stopped to think about just how complex a human life is? I mean, it's this huge web of thoughts, roles, places, and goals. So, how does someone like an occupational therapist even begin to untangle all of that to help a person? Well, today we're diving into their secret weapon, the blueprints they use, otherwise known as models of practice. I mean, really think about it. If you're helping someone get back on their feet after a major life change, where do you start? You can't just zero in on one single symptom or problem. You need a bigger picture. You need a map, a guide that shows you the whole person living in their world. And that's exactly the challenge these models were created to solve. And here's the solution, the model of practice, or MOP for short. Honestly, the best way to think of it is as a mental map. It's this brilliant framework that helps a therapist see all the connections between three absolutely critical things: the person, the environment they're in, and the occupations. All the meaningful activities that make up their life. It's not a rigid recipe. It's more like a guide for exploration. All right, so let's lay the groundwork. We're going to get into exactly what these models are, and more importantly, why they are so incredibly fundamental to the whole practice of occupational therapy. Okay, first things first, let's clear up something that trips a lot of people up. You'll hear about models of practice, and you'll also hear about frames of reference. Here's the easiest way to remember it. The model of practice is the big picture map of the entire country. It shows you the major cities, the highways, the landscape. The frame of reference? That's your GPS, giving you turn-by-turn directions for one specific part of your trip. The model gives you the context. The frame gives you the specific action plan. So why bother with a model at all? Well, for one, they provide structure. They organize all of these unique OT concepts into a system that actually makes sense. Two, they make sure therapist thinking is grounded in solid theory, keeping the practice evidence-based. And maybe most important of all, they push for a truly holistic view, making sure the therapist sees the client as a whole person, with their own roles, priorities, and unique life story, not just a diagnosis on a chart. Okay, now that we know why we need a map, let's check out some of the most trusted and widely used atlases in the entire OT world. We're going to shine a spotlight on the big three models that you'll find in just about every OT program out there. First up is MOHO, which stands for the Model of Human Occupation. This one's a big deal. Developed by Gary Kielhofner, it's got the longest history and has been super influential. The core idea behind MOHO is all about understanding how we as humans choose, organize, and perform our occupations. It's really a deep dive into our inner world and how that world drives everything we do. Now, MOHO breaks down our internal engine into three key parts. First, you've got volition. This is your why, your motivation, your core values, your belief in your own abilities. Then there's habituation. This is your how, all the roles you play and the habits that put your daily life on a kind of autopilot. And finally, you have performance. That's the what, your actual physical and mental ability to do things. And the key is they're all constantly interacting with each other. So the whole point of using MOHO isn't just about getting someone to perform a task. The ultimate goal is what's called occupational adaptation. It's about helping a person build a positive occupational identity, a really strong sense of who they are and what they're capable of, and then building the competence to back it up. That's what lets them adapt to whatever life throws their way. Okay, on to our next major model, PEOP. That's the Person, Environment, Occupation, Performance Model. And just like the name says, PEOP is all about the interaction, that delicate balance between all those factors. It uses what's called a top-down approach, which is just a fancy way of saying it always starts with what the client themselves wants to do. It puts their goals right at the center. So PEP gives therapists a really systematic way to look at all the pieces of the puzzle. It looks at the person, their psychology, their physical health, even their spirituality. It looks at the environment, everything from the cultural context to the physical layout of their home. It identifies the occupation they want to do. And that final performance is seen as the direct result of how all of those other pieces are working together or not working together. The real magic of PEOPs is that its goal is all about improving the fit. If someone's struggling, a therapist using PEOPs is like a detective looking for the mismatch. Is it the person's arthritis making it hard to turn a doorknob, or is the doorknob just old and terribly designed? The solution is found by improving that fit, either by building up the person's skills or by changing the environment to support them better. And our third major player is CMOE, the Canadian Model of Occupational Performance and Engagement. Now, this model grew out of an earlier version, and that E they added for engagement, it's a total game changer. It shifts the focus from just doing an activity to the whole experience of being meaningfully involved in it. And this right here is what makes CMOP so unique. You can see it looks at the person, their occupations, and their environment, just like the others. But look what's sitting right there, smack in the middle: spirituality. Now, this doesn't just mean religion. The model defines it as the very essence of a person, their source of will, meaning, and purpose. It literally puts what is most meaningful to that individual at the absolute heart of the therapy process. This focus leads to a really powerful, and you might even say aspirational, goal. CMOP-E isn't just about health and well-being, it's about achieving justice. This really broadens the scope, encouraging therapists to look at and challenge societal barriers and advocate for a world where everyone has a fair shot at participating in the occupations that give their lives meaning. All right, we've officially met the big three. Now, let's put them side by side. This is where we can really start to see the subtle differences and understand how each one gives a therapist a unique lens to look through. So let's put on our therapist hat for a second. Imagine your client feels completely lost and unmotivated after a life-changing event. You might grab MOHO off the shelf first, because it's perfect for exploring that internal drive, their volition. But what if your client is super motivated but is running into physical barriers at home? Well, then POP's focus on that person-environment fit is the ideal starting point. And for a client who's really searching for a deeper sense of purpose in their life, CMOP-E's focus on spirituality provides an amazing guide. Each model offers a different, powerful perspective. So, we have these fantastic models, but how does a therapist actually use them in the real world? How do you go from one of these abstract maps to a concrete real-life plan for a client? The truth is, therapists almost never use just one model in isolation. The best therapists have a whole toolkit, and they know how to blend different approaches. And that toolkit has more than just these three. It includes culturally aware models like the Kawa model and others that focus on specific things like social interaction. It's all about knowing which tool is right for which job. And this isn't random. It's done very systematically. A therapist will usually pick one main framework to be their organizing model of practice. That's kind of their home base. Then they'll pull in specific ideas or tools from other complementary models as needed. So, for example, a therapist could use CMOP-E as their main guide to explore client search for purpose, but borrow tools from PEOP to do a really detailed analysis of their work environment. So, after all this, what's the big takeaway? Why do these models matter so much? Well, they're the bridge that connects complex theory to real practical action. They make sure that therapy stays holistic and is always centered on the client's actual life, not just their diagnosis. And at the end of the day, they guide the entire profession toward its highest goal, improving participation, well-being, and even justice, all through the incredible power of occupation. So these models are a therapist's guide to their client's world. I'll leave you with this question to think about. If you were to draw a map of your own well-being, what would be the most important landmark on it?